What's good, my people? Welcome into Buckets, Action Network's NBA betting podcast. We're in the workshop. Joining me, of course, you know it's Thursday. JD, Joe Delera. JD, what's going on?
Dude, we're chilling. Knicks runs him, man. We're looking
Runs
good.
him.
Runs
That's a
him.
that's a fact. And we are joined going forward now by Gilles Gallant. Gilles, what's going on? You're gonna be talking props for us on Thursdays.
I love it, man. Sean and Joe, I've been following you guys for a while. I mean, we talk hoops off air anyway, so it was just nice to be able to just jump in. We can look at this Thursday slate. It's only a few games, but some of them could really impact the standings here. So I'm excited to see kind of what plays you got for these games.
JD, Joe Delera, you're the vet on the Thursday pod. Give me your best bet for Thursday night slate.
All right, so we are looking at some of the bad teams, but we are looking at the Indiana Pacers -4. I like them up to -5.5, -6 even against the San Antonio Spurs.
Gilles, what are you looking at?
3-point props as usual, my man. I'm going to be looking at Kyle Kuzma to have at least 3 threes versus the Toronto Raptors. And I'm going to go back to a former Toronto Raptors great, Kawahi Leonard, to have at least 3 threes against the Warriors.
I despise the slate. I'm going to pass altogether. We're still waiting as we record this on Wednesday night. We're still waiting on the Sixers-Mavs line. I may have a lean there, but right now I'm going to pass. I'm going to let Gilles and JD, Joe Delera, take care of it. All right, Joe, talk to me. Why do you like the side?
All right, there's not a lot to say about the San Antonio Spurs besides they are in full-on tank, bring on Victor Wembanyama mode, and they are doing it better than anybody else in the NBA. They have the worst adjusted net rating in the league on the season, -9.5. They're just really bad. They're an abysmal team. They're not even really trying to win, and they're basically doing a professional tank job, and it's pretty incredible, honestly. But then if we look on the flip side, the big thing with the Indiana Pacers has been they really struggled. They really skid without Tyrese Halliburton, and it's kind of taken them out of the playoff picture. And then it's taken Tyrese a little bit of time to get back. Now, I'm just going to throw this out there. He is a leap year baby. So he's actually born on February 29th. So we could arguably call this a birthday game. But over the past couple of weeks, the Pacers have been a bit better. They're 3-1 with the 7th best point differential over the last 2 weeks. So they're plus 5.3. You can compare and contrast that to the San Antonio Spurs. They're 1-3 with a -11.8 point differential. This is a game. Halliburton is going to be head and shoulders the best player on the floor. You're going to have him. You're going to have Miles Turner. The Pacers have obviously Buddy Hield. They have by far the best talent on the floor, and I think at -4, even on the road, this is just a complete mismatch against one team that hasn't totally decided that they're going to tank yet, and another team that is very much in we are going to get a top 4 lottery pick here, and we are very certain that we're going to try to do that. So I like the Pacers at -4. I think this is a dramatic mismatch, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this go to -6.
Gilles, any thoughts? Spurs coming off a W, beat Utah 102-94 in their last time out.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a battle of 2 coaches who are getting too old for this shit kind of thing. Like, you know what I mean? Just with Carlisle and Popovich, I'm surprised that he can even stomach this kind of season with the way that they're going. But obviously they want that 25% chance of getting Wemby or Scoot at least. The Pacers, again, one of those teams that I think I'm surprised that they're only favored by 4. I think just obviously being an opening line, I think that line is going to creep up even more as we get closer to game time and you start seeing these lineups. So love this pick from Joe, and I'm loving that he's getting some early action on it.
We've talked about this spot before. The Spurs have played 9 in a row on the road. They finally got a W to close it out, but they had lost all those other games on the road. They're 1-8 on that 9-game road trip. Now, we've talked about the spot of going home after a long road trip. You get home, you hang out with some people that you haven't seen. You just get acclimated to being back home. And I always try to bring up this number, which I think is very interesting. After a 4-game road trip, teams against the spread in their first home game after a 4-game plus road trip since 2003, 49%. The last 5.5 seasons, they're 46.7%. against the spread in their first game back home. It's always a soft spot for a soft team like the Spurs. I agree. The Pacers should take care of business.
Charmin
All right, Gilles. Yeah, super Charmin soft.
Charmin soft.
Gilles, talk to me about some 3-pointers. What are you looking at? Whoever you want to break down first, Kawhi. You know what? Give me Kawhi first because that I like to call him the boogeyman. I love me some Kawhi Leonard. Let me hear it on why he'll go over.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing that draws you in is the plus money. He's sitting there at plus 130 in comparison to his teammate Paul George, who also has an over under 2.5 line, but you're seeing, upwards of minus 155 right now for his over. So while I do like Paul George to have 3 or more threes, I can't really recommend that kind of price. I think I would look at maybe a 3.5 or wait to see closer to tip off if that line drops. But for Kawhi, right now sitting around plus 130, I don't think you guys might know this, but this is actually his best shooting season with the Clippers since joining them, shooting 40% from 3. It's actually his best percentage from 3 since the 2015-2016 season. Now, from a more recency bias standpoint, so he's hit this in 3 straight games versus the Warriors, I guess, if you want to look at the last few years of when he's been in and out of the lineup. But really, even more recent, like February has just been incredible for Kawhi. 53% from the 3-point line, just under 3-point makes per game. Easily his best month of the year. I mean, you saw kind of as he was coming off of that injury and the load management. I don't know if he really had his legs under him to start the year, but since the start of February, he's looked incredible. He's hit this mark in 4 of the last 5 games, 7 of the last 11 games overall. And for what it's worth, again, one of those games was against the Warriors. I mean, he went insane. He had 7 3-pointers in that game on 9 attempts. The perimeter defense on this Warriors team is just a shell of themselves right now without Wiggins, Iguodala to a lesser extent, Gary Payton. I don't know if he's ever going to get on the court for them. Poole is questionable. So barring a blowout, like I expect like a 40-minute workload at least for Kawhi, which just makes this much more desirable, looking at it over 2.5 at plus 130.
JD, any thoughts?
Dude, I like it. In the 3 games since they've gotten Russell Westbrook as well, he's hit this in all of his games. And you have to consider that Russell Westbrook, he's got his pros and his cons, and, the Clippers are -7 in his minutes out there. But the thing is, he does push the pace. So I think you're going to take the pace for one of like what has been a slower team, and you're really ramping that up, like especially in a pace up spot against Golden State. You should be able to get more shots off. So I like this for Kawhi.
Talk to me about your second play, Joe.
All right. So a guy who's probably more known for his pregame fit than what he does on the court, but it's Kyle Kuzma, man. Like right now, he's just been incredible shooting it at home. And so the over-under line for 2.5 over at -105 versus the Raptors. Really good matchup as well defensively. So he's only hit this in 3 of 7 games. So a lot of people, they'll look at the more recent splits of February and be like, well, he's only hit it in 3 of 7 games. But in the 3 games that he did hit, just exploded. He had 3, he had 4, he had 6, 35 3-point attempts in those 3 games. That was just before and after the All-Star break. And as I was alluding to about being a better shooter at home, he's only played 7 home games since the start of 2023, since the start of January. And he's hit this prop in 5 of them. In 24 home games on the season, he's hit it in 14 of them. So just under 60%. Now, the Raptors, a great matchup. They are middle of the pack when it comes to 3-point makes and 3-point attempts, but they're second last in the NBA in 3-point shooting percentage to their opponents. And despite being a fleet of swingmen, they actually don't defend swingmen that well at all. They give up the most 3-point makes versus opposing forwards, 9.3 per game, both and 25 attempts from forwards as well. Both are those bottom of the NBA. And I guess what I'm getting at with Kyle Kuzma, guys, is I think Kuzma now deserves 3-point prop respect. He's around 7.7 attempts per game. It's the same amount as Luka Doncic, same amount as Jaylen Brown, same amount as Paul George. They're all nearly shooting the same percentage of between 33 to 34%, and all of them have similar 3-point lines. And you guys both know we live on gambling Twitter. We see everybody promoting Doncic and Brown or George as if like these guys are like locks. But we can look at it right now that Kuzma is actually shooting the same amount of volume and around the same percentage as those guys. And I wouldn't necessarily put him in the same class as far as talent goes, but volume is volume. And depending on his pregame fit, like if his sweater is a triple XL and it's touching the ground, like I'm going to be laddering his props to the moon, man.
Let's go.
Yeah, especially if he hits one early. He's a big time confidence guy. When he's feeling good, he has no problem getting them up. And you always want to look at guys that are going to get the volume you want to cash some of these props. There's no doubt about it. Any thoughts, JD?
I mean, yeah.
Dude, I mean, I like the look. I think it makes a lot of sense here. And Toronto, they have the third worst 3-point percentage allowed. So it's definitely a spot for Kuzma here. Can't hate this.
Yeah. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, obviously, I could try to talk you guys into Porzingis, or I could talk you into Kuzma. I'm just feeling Kuzma a little bit better in this matchup as opposed to Porzingis. But if somebody was like asking me in the DMs, like, hey, what do you think about Porzingis in this spot? I wouldn't talk them off the ledge on that one either.
Yeah, I think either of them, I like the way that they can stretch the floor against Toronto, who, has the ability to do that as well. So
yeah, they're the type of defense too. They junk it up sometimes. So that's the one thing, unless you have like that star player, like a box and one that they would try to throw at somebody, which the Wizards do not have. I don't expect them to be able to put any kind of defensive adjustments to be able to slow down the 3-point shooting of the Wizards.
Oh no, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was going through the slate. I was looking for a play for hours. I was scanning. I was going through. There wasn't too much out there in terms of props. I just couldn't find anything. I want to go through these really quick game by game and kind of give a few thoughts on it. Warriors Clippers. The Clippers are coming off of a couple losses now. Warriors are still without Steph. That just seems like a neck and neck game. They just played recently as well. It just seems like a coin flip type of spot.
Yeah.
If it was in LA, maybe it'd be a different story. But with it being in San Francisco, the 3 number feels about right with that matchup. Then if you go look at the Pacers game, everything you laid out for the Pacers is dead on, JD. But why is it so short? Dude, I can't figure that out. Why is the number so light? So that kind of scared me a little bit off of that game. The Spurs give up points in bunches, but a lot of their games have been going under. I don't want to say they've been playing hard because they're one of the worst teams in the NBA by quite a wide margin. But that game is funky as well. I mentioned the angle on the getting back home and how that affects you guys and squads usually against the spread. Sixers Mavs, we don't have a number here as we record this Wednesday night. And then Raptors Wizards is a coin flip. Those guys are battling to get into that 7 to 10 range in the East for the play-in with the Bulls and some other guys. So there wasn't a lot of spots. Now, one thing that I will take a look at when it comes out is Pascal Siakam's points plus rebounds. They should destroy the Washington Wizards on the glass. And Pascal Siakam is going to, as a guy, talking to a couple people around the league as well, they are trying to push and make the playoffs and want to participate in that play-in. I think he's going to close the year strong. He's been playing well all year. I would look at that number against a soft interior Washington team. I got to see what it is when it comes out. But overall, the slate was tough for me.
Yeah, I know. I want to see what this Dallas Philly line is. Obviously, Philly's on a back-to-back. You beat Miami in Miami. Kind of emotional win for them in a way because Joel Embiid didn't play. But that means you're going to probably have a fresh Embiid against that absolute Swiss cheese Dallas defense. And he might put up a 40 piece tomorrow because they're going to have guys that are a little tired, like they played their hearts out against Miami. I'm looking at whatever Embiid's points line is. I'm looking at that because I don't know who is stopping him on the Mavericks.
Yeah, it's going to be 3 and 4 for Philly as well, which is my guess is why they gave Embiid a day off. Anything on any comments on that, GG?
Yeah, I mean the same thing with the Raptors. I mean they've been really hot this month. They're 8-3. They're beating up on some fairly decent teams, but again, not necessarily teams that are world beaters. Like the last 2 of their last 3 wins, you're getting a win over Chicago and Detroit and New Orleans without Zion and Orlando and then Detroit again. So it's kind of like, all right, is this the Raptors kind of being able to get back into that groove of being a fixture in the Eastern Conference, or are they just a bunch of swingmen just running around with no defined position? And we're still kind of trying to see that. Now, the one thing that's been good about Pascal, if you're looking at a points rebound standpoint, playing incredible right now this month. 26 points a game, 7 rebounds. it's probably right around where that line is going to be for points of rebounds. It's probably going to be about 31 to 32, maybe even 33.5, depending on how you feel about the Washington defense. But I think that's the one thing too, is on the road, he actually takes more 3-point attempts on the road. So you might be able to get a little quicker there, especially if he's starting to shoot it a little bit better. He's only had really one game since the All-Star break where he's had better than one 3-point attempt made, at this point. So I think with Pascal, that's a guy that I'll definitely be looking at. But I think with this game, you're seeing it right now, like -1. I even think books don't even really know how to place this line right now.
Yeah, it was a pick 'em. It's been bouncing back and forth all over the place.
Is the Raptors, is it fool's gold of what we're seeing this month with some of these wins over chumpy teams? Or is it Washington who could actually put up a little bit of a fight at home, and maybe you see Kyle Kuzma put up a 6 3-point night?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the interesting things with Pascal actually is with the acquisition of Pirtle, his rebounds have gone down a little bit, but his scoring has increased. So I'm curious to see what Washington does, because if they run Porzingis at the 5, you maybe don't need to run you maybe don't need to use Pirtle as much, and they can run Siakam at the 5. So I'm curious to see, because I think like if that's what they decide to do instead of going with like Gafford at the 5, then I think that really opens up that PR spot for Siakam. So that could be another consideration if you were waiting to play it a little bit closer to tip.
Yeah, and Pirtle played. He didn't play to close the game against the Bulls the other night, which I thought was interesting. So stay tuned there. To recap, JD is on the Pacers -4. Try to get the best number you can. Gilles is on Kawhi over 2.5 threes at +130. Love the plus money there. Kuzma over 2.5 threes at -105. I'm off of the slate. I lean some type of prop, potentially looking at Pascal Siakam versus soft Washington Wizards team. But that's why you follow us in the Action Network app to see what we log in there. Those will be the official plays. For JD, Joe Delera, for Jill Gallant, I am Sean Little. We'll see you next time. And always remember, get buckets, baby.